Hey everyone, welcome back to Fatal Files. I'm Nathan Cole. Today, I'm diving into Karens who thought they knew better than everyone, a mindset that never ends well. From a Karen who ditched her dermatologist for a cheap home injector, to one who turned away every helping hand that ever came to her door and paid for it the one night she couldn't answer it herself. It was March 14th, 2018 in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is a fairly typical suburban area. Strip malls, quiet residential streets, the kind of neighborhood where most days look exactly like the one before it. Donna Schechter was 41 years old and worked as an office manager at a dental practice. She was the kind of person who had an opinion on everything and wasn't shy about sharing it. If something cost more than she thought it should, she said so. If a professional told her something she didn't want to hear, she found a way to dismiss it. Her coworkers knew her as opinionated and difficult to reason with once she had made up her mind. Donna is what I would call a self-appointed expert Karen, the type who has done 20 minutes of online research and now knows more than the person with the medical license. In early 2018, Donna visited her licensed dermatologist for a routine appointment. The dermatologist noticed early volume loss in her cheeks, a completely normal cosmetic concern for a woman in her early 40s, and referred her to a certified injector for hyaluronic acid fillers. The quoted price was $600 per syringe. Donna immediately decided this was a scam. She accused her dermatologist of upselling and left without booking anything. She went home, opened Facebook, and started looking for a cheaper option. She found one, an esthetician advertising filler sessions out of her home for $180. No credentials listed, no certifications, no mention of what products she was using or where they came from. Donna booked the same day. The first session appeared to go fine. No immediate reaction, no visible complications. She posted about it positively and considered herself a savvy consumer who had beaten the system. It was like jumping off a roof, landing fine, and deciding you can fly. 6 weeks later, she went back for a second session. Cheeks, nasolabial folds, and under eyes. What Donna did not know was that the product being used was sourced online from an unverified supplier and injected in a non-clinical setting without proper sterile technique, significantly increasing the risk of infection. The day after the session, she noticed firm swelling and warmth on her left cheek. The esthetician told her it was normal inflammation and to ice it. Donna accepted this without question. When her dermatologist's office called for a routine follow-up and Donna mentioned the swelling, the dermatologist told her the symptoms were concerning for a possible infection and not typical post-filler swelling, urging her to come in that same day for evaluation. Donna refused. She said she was busy and accused the dermatologist of manufacturing a reason for a billable visit. She had a licensed professional giving her a specific urgent warning and turned it into a conspiracy about money. Over the following 4 days, the swelling hardened, a visible abscess formed along her cheekbone, and her fever reached 100.8 degrees Fahrenheit. A co-worker at the dental practice, someone who worked around oral and facial infections daily, told Donna her face looked infected and that she needed urgent care immediately. Donna called it filler migration and kept taking ibuprofen. She worked surrounded by people who understood what an infection looked like and still would not hear it. By day 6, Donna's fever had climbed to 103.4 degrees Fahrenheit and she was becoming visibly confused at her desk. 2 co-workers noticed she was no longer responding coherently. Her face was asymmetrical, flushed, and visibly swollen on the left side. A 22-year-old dental assistant, only 3 weeks into her first job, was the first to notice Donna slumping forward in her chair. She froze. An older co-worker stepped around her and called 911. That must have been absolutely terrifying for her. Barely 3 weeks into her first job, and that is what her morning looked like. Paramedics found Donna in septic shock, low blood pressure, elevated heart rate, and altered mental status. The infection had spread beyond the injection site into surrounding facial tissue. She was admitted to the ICU and treated with IV antibiotics and fluids, but her condition continued to deteriorate. She died 14 hours later from septic shock and multi-organ failure. The esthetician's social media was deleted within 48 hours. The property had no health inspection records or formal registration on file with the county. Donna thought she was being smart by cutting corners, and it cost her everything. The next case I looked into genuinely made me question how far someone will go to avoid being told what to do. This one involves a woman who walked out of a hospital less than 12 hours after surgery because she had a property showing the next morning. It was October 6th, 2015 in Columbus, Ohio. Columbus is a mid-sized city, busy enough to have major medical facilities, quiet enough that most people living there would tell you nothing dramatic ever really happens to them. This story starts in one of those medical facilities and ends somewhere it never should have. Renee Calloway was 53 years old and worked as a licensed real estate agent. She ran her own schedule, managed her own clients, and had built a career entirely around being the one in control of every situation she walked into. She was impatient with anyone she perceived as wasting her time and openly distrustful of professionals she felt were talking down to her. She had previously filed formal complaints against nursing staff at her regular clinic for what she described as condescension. Renee is the classic authority-resistant Karen, perfectly cooperative with systems as long as she is the one running them. On a Monday morning, Renee underwent a routine laparoscopic cholecystectomy, a gallbladder removal, at a regional medical center. The procedure was uncomplicated, and she was moved to the recovery ward by mid-morning. While many patients are discharged the same day, her surgeon recommended extended observation due to the risk of delayed complications such as internal bleeding, bile leak, and anesthesia-related issues. Renee was alert by early afternoon and immediately began demanding discharge paperwork. She told her nurse the hospital was holding patients overnight to inflate billing. Her attending surgeon visited at 4 p.m. and explained directly that post-laparoscopic internal bleeding can develop silently for up to 12 hours, and that leaving early carried real documented risk. Renee told him she felt fine and had a property showing the following morning she was not willing to reschedule. She requested AMA paperwork against medical advice, signed it without reading it, and walked out at 6:30 p.m. Signing yourself out of a hospital less than 12 hours after abdominal surgery because of a work commitment is not confidence. It is poor judgment dressed up as independence. That evening, she felt mild abdominal discomfort she attributed to post-surgical gas. By midnight, it had sharpened into localized pain on her upper right side. She took 2 leftover hydrocodone tablets from a previous prescription, which partially masked how serious the pain actually was. At 6:15 a.m., she called the surgeon's answering service. The on-call physician told her to go to the nearest emergency room immediately. Her symptoms were consistent with a possible internal bleed. Renee told him she had a showing at 9 a.m. and would come in afterward. She took 1 more hydrocodone tablet, got dressed, and drove to the property. She arrived at the listing at 8:50 a.m. and let herself in with the lockbox key. The buyer's agent, a woman in her late 60s doing part-time real estate to supplement her retirement income, arrived at 9:05 a.m. and found Renee on the kitchen floor, pale and unresponsive to direct questions. She was alone with Renee for several minutes before paramedics arrived, kneeling beside her on the floor trying to keep her conscious. That woman stayed on that kitchen floor with a dying stranger for several minutes. Most people would have walked right back out that door. Renee was disoriented, her abdomen visibly distended, her pulse rapid and weak on arrival. She was transported immediately. Surgeons discovered a slow but continuous internal bleed from a small clip failure at the cystic artery, a recognized, though uncommon complication of laparoscopic gallbladder surgery that can allow blood to accumulate gradually over several hours. The blood loss was consistent with a bleed that had been progressing for several hours overnight. Despite rapid surgical intervention to control the bleeding, Renee died on the operating table from hemorrhagic shock. The AMA form contained her signature alongside the surgeon's documented verbal warning. The on-call physician's 6:15 a.m. instruction was logged in the call record. Renee had been told twice, clearly, and both times it was documented. She chose the property showing instead. Renee had every chance to walk out of this story alive. She just kept choosing not to take it. When I came across the next case, I actually had to reread it twice because the level of institutional failure surrounding this woman is almost as frustrating as she is. This one takes us to a gym in Georgia. It was January 13th, 2015 in Marietta, Georgia. Marietta is a fairly ordinary suburb sitting about 20 miles northwest of Atlanta. Chain restaurants, strip mall gyms, the kind of place where the biggest drama on any given morning is usually the line at the drive-thru. Patrice Holden was 47 years old and worked as a school district administrator. She was organized, opinionated, and deeply uncomfortable in situations where someone else had authority over her. She paid for a premium gym membership and treated that monthly fee as a personal license to do whatever she wanted inside the building. Staff who corrected her were overstepping. Trainers who flagged her were singling her out. In her first 8 months at the gym, she filed 3 separate complaints against staff members for what she described as hovering. What none of those complaints mentioned was the line on her intake form she had filled out at sign-up. Under medical disclosures, Patrice had listed a diagnosed condition called paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, an irregular heart rhythm that causes the heart to beat erratically and unpredictably. The gym's standard policy required a physician clearance letter before any member with a disclosed cardiac condition could use high-intensity equipment. Patrice never submitted one. Front desk staff noted it as missing, but did not consistently follow up. Patrice is the kind of Karen who weaponizes the customer relationship. The moment she hands over money, she considers herself untouchable. 3 months in, a trainer named Corey gently corrected her form on the cable machine, citing injury risk. Patrice reported him to management the same day, accusing him of publicly embarrassing her. Corey received a written warning as a result. 5 months in, Patrice demanded management post a formal apology from Corey on the gym's community bulletin board. When they declined, she printed her own grievance letter and pinned it to the board herself before staff could stop her. Management removed it the same day. 8 months into her membership, Patrice decided to start training at significantly higher intensity. A certified trainer named Marcus reviewed her file and asked her to complete a brief fitness assessment before increasing intensity. Standard policy for any member with a cardiac disclosure on file. Patrice accused him of targeting her and threatened to contact the corporate franchise office. The gym manager asked her to complete it as a formality. Patrice refused, turned to 2 nearby members, and said loudly that staff here targeted women who knew what they were doing. She then demanded a general liability waiver instead. The front desk handed her one to defuse the situation, despite it not replacing the required medical clearance. She signed it and considered the matter closed. The fact that Corey got a written warning for correcting her form while Patrice walked away with a waiver instead of a clearance letter is genuinely one of the more frustrating sequences in any story I have covered. The following Tuesday, she arrived at 6:45 a.m. during a low staffing window before the morning trainer shift began. She set the treadmill to 7.2 miles per hour for 12 minutes, moved immediately to the cable machine for 3 sets of high-resistance pulls, then transitioned without rest to the rowing machine at maximum resistance. No warm-up, no breaks, no clearance. That waiver did not clear her heart condition. It just moved the paperwork around. At approximately 7:20 a.m., a man in his mid-30s using the free weights nearby noticed Patrice's rowing cadence become irregular and her posture collapse forward. He asked if she was okay. Patrice raised one hand without speaking. About 75 seconds later, she released the handlebar and slid off the seat onto the floor. He began hands only, CPR per 911 dispatcher instructions, the recommended approach for an untrained bystander in a cardiac emergency, while a front desk attendant who had just arrived for her shift stayed on the line with dispatch. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes. Patrice was pronounced dead at the scene from sudden cardiac arrest triggered by a cardiac rhythm disturbance during intense exertion, with her underlying atrial fibrillation increasing her overall risk. The gym pulled Patrice's file the same morning. The physician clearance line on her intake form was blank. The signed waiver was clipped to the front of the folder. Every warning was logged, every instruction was clear, and she drove herself there anyway. I'll be honest, the next one hit differently for me, because there are children in this story. A mother decided the safety rules at her son's birthday party didn't apply to her, and the track had the last word. If you are finding these stories as frustrating as I am, you are in the right place. Subscribe now. We cover cases exactly like this one every week. It was April 22nd, 2017, in the outskirts of Nashville, Tennessee. The kind of place families drive out to on weekends. A family entertainment complex off a state highway. Go-karts, arcade games, the works. The kind of afternoon that is supposed to end with tired kids and a cake. Gail Humphrey was 44 years old and worked as a dental hygienist at a private practice. She was not an unreasonable person in most settings, but put her in a public space with an audience and a minor inconvenience, and she became a different version of herself entirely. She had a pattern of demanding exceptions to posted rules at venues and frequently cited how much money she had spent as justification for special treatment. On this particular Saturday, she had brought her son and 3 of his friends out for his 10th birthday. Gail is the kind of Karen who performs for a crowd. The bigger the audience, the harder she pushes. Helmet use was mandatory at this facility. It was posted at the parking lot entrance, at the ticket booth, and again at the staging area. 3 separate points before anyone got near a cart. When a teenage track attendant named Tyler handed Gail a helmet at the staging area, she refused it immediately and loudly, telling him the helmets were unsanitary and that she was not putting something on her head that hundreds of strangers had worn. Tyler offered her a disposable foam liner and a sanitizing wipe, standard options the facility kept on hand specifically for this complaint. Gail took the wipe, dropped it on the ground, and told Tyler she had spent over $120 at the complex that day and did not need safety instructions from a teenager. Tyler called his shift supervisor. The supervisor arrived within 2 minutes and calmly explained that helmet use was a mandatory safety requirement at the facility, enforced under their operating and insurance policies. This was not optional. Gail looked around the staging area and asked the supervisor to point out anyone else being harassed before getting in their cart. Every single other driver was visibly helmeted. The supervisor told her plainly she could not operate a cart without one. Gail told the 4 children to get in their carts, boarded her own, and gripped the wheel. 2 employees tried to stop her, and she just sat there and waited them out. That kind of stubbornness in front of your own kid is something else. Staff made the decision not to escalate physically in front of a group of children. In the confusion at the staging area, Gail advanced her cart forward into the track queue as the system cycled, bypassing final checks. The track was a standard commercial oval, 2 banked curves, and a central straightaway, with cart speed governed to approximately 25 to 30 miles per hour. On her second lap, Gail entered the far banked curve at full throttle without reducing speed, overcorrected coming out of the turn, and the cart struck the outer concrete barrier at an oblique angle. Her unprotected head made direct contact with the tubular frame rail above the seat, the kind of blunt rotational impact that does not need extreme speed to cause serious brain injury. Tyler and 2 other staff members watched it happen in real time from the elevated control booth. The supervisor activated the remote stop system within seconds. Every cart on the track halted. Several parents in the spectator area witnessed the aftermath from the stands. Staff reached Gail's cart approximately 20 seconds after impact. She was unresponsive. Her son, whose birthday it was still strapped into his stationary cart, 45 feet behind her. Staff described him as sitting completely still and not making a sound. That boy turned 10 that day, and that is the birthday he is going to remember for the rest of his life. Gail was transported by ambulance and died at a regional medical center the following morning from a severe subdural hematoma. The helmet Tyler had offered her at the staging area was still sitting on the bench when investigators arrived. Helmet use at the facility was mandatory under its safety and insurance policies. It was not a suggestion. Gail won every argument at that track that afternoon, except the one that mattered. The last case I want to cover today is one that stayed with me after I finished writing it. A retired woman in Indianapolis who made sure nobody could ever get into her home and slowly turned it into something she couldn't walk out of. It was December 9th, 2016, on the southeast side of Indianapolis, Indiana. This is a quiet residential part of the city. 2-story rental homes, narrow driveways, kind of neighborhood where people mostly keep to themselves and mind their own business. Most nights here are uneventful. This one was not. Carol Metzger was 58 years old and retired, formerly a school secretary for over 2 decades. She lived alone in a 2-story rental home and spent most of her evenings in her living room recliner watching television. She rarely left the house during winter months and had very little interaction with her neighbors. What she did have was an extraordinary amount of energy directed toward keeping people out of her space. In 2 years as a tenant, she had submitted 3 formal maintenance refusal notices to her landlord over what she described as privacy violations. She cited lease language she did not fully understand, used legal threat language in everyday conversations, and had a documented history of blocking every scheduled maintenance visit her landlord attempted. Carol is the kind of Karen who mistakes paranoia for principle. She was not protecting her rights, she was just protecting her comfort. Since mid-October, Carol had been running a 1,500-watt ceramic space heater continuously in her living room. The heater sat on the floor approximately 8 inches from floor-length polyester curtains. The safety label on the heater itself specified a minimum 3-foot clearance from any flammable material. Carol was operating it at less than 1 foot. In early November, her landlord received a concern from a neighboring tenant who had seen the heater running near the curtains through Carol's front window. The landlord scheduled a routine safety inspection with 48 hours written notice, permitted under the lease and consistent with Indiana state law, which allows landlord entry for safety inspections with proper notice. Carol taped a handwritten refusal note to her front door and did not answer when the maintenance worker knocked. 2 weeks later, the same maintenance worker doing exterior gutter work spotted faint scorch discoloration on the baseboard visible through Carol's front window and reported it immediately. The landlord called Carol directly. Carol told him the heater was her personal property, that he had no legal right to inspect anything she owned, and that she would contact a tenants' rights organization if he continued. The landlord sent a second formal written notice citing the safety access clause in the lease. Carol called a tenant hotline. The representative confirmed the landlord was within his legal rights under Indiana state law. Carol told the representative he was harassing her and hung up. She then blocked the follow-up inspection by leaving a note claiming she had retained legal counsel, which she had not done. In the first week of December, a next-door neighbor knocked on Carol's door and mentioned she had been smelling something like burning plastic through their shared interior wall for 2 days. Carol told her it was from cooking, stepped back inside, and closed the door. At this point, 3 separate people had flagged the same problem, and Carol had dismissed every single one of them. That evening, Carol fell asleep in her recliner at approximately 10:45 p.m. with the television on and the heater running at full power. During the day, the curtains had shifted to within approximately 4 inches of the heater's front grille. At approximately 1:30 a.m., the lower hem of the polyester curtain ignited from sustained radiant heat exposure. Polyester has a relatively low ignition threshold and burns rapidly once lit, producing dense black smoke almost immediately. The fire climbed the curtain to the rod within 90 seconds and spread laterally to the adjacent wall. Carol's smoke detector, located in the hallway approximately 18 feet from the living room, activated at around 1:34 a.m. A neighbor across the street saw the orange glow through Carol's front window at approximately 1:36 a.m. and called 911. The neighbor sharing the interior wall woke to her own smoke detector activating as smoke began to seep through the shared wall, exited through her back door, and knocked on Carol's front door twice before smoke at ground level forced her back. Carol did not respond. Firefighters made entry at approximately 1:52 a.m., a typical response time for a residential fire call. Carol was found in her recliner, consistent with having been incapacitated by smoke before she could wake. She was pronounced dead at the scene from smoke inhalation. The smoke damage from the fire extended into the unit directly above. Rented by a college student in his first apartment, he was displaced for several weeks during final exam season. The space heater was recovered intact from the burn origin point. The landlord's 2 formal written inspection notices were found in Carol's kitchen, still in their unopened envelopes. She never even opened them, and I genuinely wonder if things would have ended differently if she had.